Okay, Hilary.
Okay, so we're delighted to see you. And can I begin by thanking Beverly and the Chartered Accountants Livery Charity and Company for hosting this event. It's fantastic to have the opportunity to share what we're doing and to look back on what's happened since we started last February. So that's who I am, and I'm just introducing the session and the fantastic team I have with me. Well, I exclude myself from the fantastic bit. I can't possibly self-title myself in that way, but we've got Sarah Colcott, who's the City Harvest CEO, joining us. We've got Denise Fellows, who's past master management consultant, and we've got Richard Winstanley, who is the clerk to the Drapers Company. And then I'll be having another quick word at the end. We're all members of the task force, the Livery Food Initiative Task Force that has made this all happen over the year. So it's really nice for us to be able to come back and share what we've achieved so far. So that's who we are, and that's what we're going to be covering in our comments. I know one or two of us have got appointments we have to go on to at the end, but we will just slip away as we need to. So the initiative was part of the Livery Charity Chairs Group. So I just want to, in setting the scene, explain that's where it all started. We had a conversation there in September 2022. And the Livery Charity Chairs Group is there to help make livery charities better at attracting funds, better at running ourselves, and so able to help more people in more ways through the grants that we make. And the background to the Livery Food Initiative, we knew there was a humanitarian crisis with food poverty during the pandemic and that it was still there. And as I said, in September 22, we decided that we wanted to collaborate to do something about it. And by December, we were able to launch the Livery Food Initiative with the support of the Lord Mayor and sheriffs. And we made it a really simple approach in that we just said, please, here's a fantastic cause. Will you please give some money to City Harvest? And as you'll hear from Sarah about City Harvest, that's then able to save food that's going to waste and deliver it to hundreds of charities across London. And we had it dangling in front of us the fact that if we raised £190,000, it would enable a van to run for 3 years, delivering food for over 2 million meals. So that was a fantastic way that we were able to position our fundraising. And we see this as a 3-year endeavour, if you like, and we're at the beginning of the 2nd year. So what happened then after that ambition? Well, what happened was that by March, we'd raised enough money to be able to ask the Lord Mayor to hand over the keys to the van. So here we all are on a very chilly March morning at the event that was happening when we handed over the keys to the van. We've got Steve Winningham, who's the chair of City Harvest, actually receiving the keys from the former Lord Mayor, Nick Lyons. So we raised the money. By the time we'd got the full 190,000, 50 livery companies had got involved. And so we started raising money for the second vehicle. And you'll hear a bit later on about how we changed our direction a little bit, because we were very much, well, not a little bit, a lot. We were listening to City Harvest and working out what mattered to them. And we were very, very keen to respond in that way. And if you want to make a note of a date for your diary for this year, we're hoping to be able to hand over the keys to the truck that we're now talking about on the 5th of March at 3 o'clock outside Mansion House. So there's a date for your diaries. And other highlights that have happened over the past year as far as the Livery Food Initiative is concerned, on the 6th of July, we went down and visited City Harvest in action at their depot in Acton. Some of us also, and I know Julia's on the call, Denise is on the call, some of us went out on vans on other days and had an amazing experience actually seeing our van taking the food around. In the middle of September, we were really privileged that Sheriff Andrew Marsden hosted a reception for us at the Old Bailey. And we were able to say thank you to the 50 companies, charities that had helped us over the year. And then we were able to come along and admire City Harvest absolutely on the 1st of October, when they were absolutely integral to St. Paul's having the first Harvest Festival service that they had had within living memory. So this really was an amazing achievement that we reached during the year. So that's very much where we've got to in the first year with the Livery Food Initiative. And we're now able to share with you what the situation is with City Harvest and then what we're hoping to do in the second year. So I think I now want to hand over to Sarah.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Hilary. Sorry, thank you. I'm looking at Denise. So one of the challenges that we face in City Harvest is that everything has to move very quickly. Before we move on to what we're facing and how the van has helped us, I just want to show you everything that we as an institution achieved in 2023. Let's hope the tech is supportive this evening.
Oh,
Always the way. I shouldn't have said anything, should I?
Sorry, that was me. I clicked the chat button, would you believe, when I was sharing the screen, and it stopped the sharing. So I'll just do it again.
Thank you, Hilary. So lots achieved last year. Lots of people, and yes, Steve, there is a link to the video. We're really happy to share that one. Thank you. So the state of the challenge. So London has the greatest density of need in the UK. It's 244 people per square kilometre are missing a meal on a regular basis. It's called living in food poverty. Which means that usually it's the adult in the household is going without food in order for the children to eat, to the point where nobody in that household has any food on any given day in that week, and they're completely reliant on free school meals or community kitchens and organisations in that group. We have the greatest issue of any developed Western city in the world. We are the fourth richest country in the developed world, but we have the largest issue of hunger in a capital. We work quite a lot with institutions like Bain & Co and EY Parthenon. They've been doing a lot of investigation for us, which is where some of this imagery comes from. And they're looking in terms of the density of need, and they're helping us direct our services into the boroughs that are showing greatest density of need. So if you look at the map there, you sort of actually, if you're looking anything to the left-hand half of that of the map of the city, that's where we are historically very, very strong. With the assistance of the Livery Food Initiative van, where we operate out of New Spitalfields Market as well, which is where the van is based and which is where it concentrates its operations around that side of the city. And it very clearly shows that that is our next area of focus, and so it shows our development. The map on the right-hand side shows the 375 plus community organisations. We've added the plus to our rhetoric because in any given week, the number could fluctuate up and down according to what's happening within the organisation. It could be that we're supporting something like Rackets Cubed or Greenhouse Sports, so they really up their offer during the school holidays, and so while volume exponentially rises every time a school is closed, because those children who need a free school meal 5 days a week still need one Saturday, Sunday, and all the way through the holidays. So we have a lot of organisations that we help that way. We currently run at 1.2 million meals per month, which is around 120 tonnes of food a week, which equates to something in the region of 50,000 meals worth of food heading out of the doors in our warehouses each day. But our waiting list plus our current list of beneficiaries need 2 million meals a month. And that is where we need to be by the end of 2024. Now, it's an enormous gear shift from where we are at the moment. We have a very, very ambitious strategy for the future. It involves developing what we do in London. It also involves heading out into another region. But the real critical part of this is that we are starting to engage with the agencies that are making really enormous differences in the city. You would have all seen in the capital this winter a rising number of people who are homeless. I talked before we started the slides about the 800,000 in the UK that have been admitted to hospital because of malnutrition. This Christmas, the figure from Shelter is that we had 140,000 children in the UK who didn't have a home this Christmas. They were in temporary accommodation. They'd been made homeless through a Section 21 no-fault eviction notice. They are from migrant families. They are from families who have just run out of money in every way and have nowhere to go. Shelter figures in London came out worse. 1 in 51 people in London are currently homeless. Newham has the highest rate with 1 in 20 people homeless, and the total number of homeless in London currently has risen by 11% from 150,000 to 160,000 people. So when we talk about the crisis, and this is a symptom of the crisis that we're facing. The fact that we've had 11% growth in 12 months just shows the number of people who ran out of money last winter and they haven't been able to restore the status of their family. They haven't been able to hold on to their house. They are now unable to run a household. And this, of course, adds an additional burden on society. It also adds an additional burden in terms of the kind of diet that we need to source to support them. Could I have the next slide, please, Hilary? As you said from the slideshow, that we have been producing reports. We've been working with a number of agencies to ensure that we've got really meaningful, very robust, nationally focused data. So ONS, Kellogg's, RAP, Sheffield, using the big institutions. But these are the big stats now. You've got 66% of our population who are eating less nutritious food. So I heard earlier about policemen not arresting people for shoplifting because they're taking a loaf of bread and a tin of beans. You've got a lot of people who don't have access to fresh produce. They don't have the ability to store it. And that's where the groups that we support step in. 34% live in absolute poverty in London. 700,000 children. 4 million families going hungry because they cannot afford food. And this is not about education. This is about not having enough money to turn the lights on and run a fridge and run a cooker. Obviously, the social impact of this is really enormous. It causes anxiety, less achievement in school, less attention in school. It's causing lifelong disabilities within children due to malnutrition. I have a great friend who works within the Department of Health and Social Care, and her part of the department is focused on maternal death and natal death due to hunger, basically, and looking at the rising issues within maternity units. And it is a symptom of this problem. Could I have the next slide, please, Hilary? So one of the other side of the challenge is massively rising demands. And the other side of the challenge is that everybody's being, within the retail chain and within a lot of manufacturing, is being exceptionally good at meeting the challenges laid down by their signature on the Courtauld Agreement. So they have agreed, and they are working very hard because it's a good economic benefit to their business to reduce waste in the system. So we've seen an exponential reduction in the volume of food that comes from our key partners. So we get a lot of food from Amazon Fresh. Their model guarantees food in your fridge with a shelf life of 3 days, for instance, for chilled. And their model then will, they've got great kit and great tech, and that will then clear out anything that won't guarantee the 3 days. That comes to us. But from that one donor, we've seen a 49% reduction in volumes in 12 months because there are systems efficiencies. And we're seeing that same volume drop across a lot of those key partners. So it's pushing us further back into the supply chain. It's building up, we've done a lot of work this year. Those of you who've met before know I'm a farmer by heritage. I've spent 30 years in food and farming, working with the retailers, working with grower groups. So we've pushed back into the farm supply basin through primary production to secondary processing. And so we're looking how far back into the supply chain we can have a good, meaningful relationship and how we can bring more food in for those that are cooking for others, because the critical area that we're seeing growth in terms of community offering is those that provide a warm, safe space with warm food, either for free or at a greatly subsidized rate. And with that warm space, safe place with good food, comes advice and guidance and support and counselling, which the free food facilitates. So our big opportunity lies further back in the supply chain. Responsiveness absolutely is key. If somebody says, I've got 400 pints of milk, we need to be able to go there the same day and pick up those 400 pints of milk. And the same way someone's, I've got eggs or I've got apples, to be able to get there quickly, to be able to share those in peak condition is absolutely key. Currently, we are reliant on third-party haulage, which they are an amazing team, but they quite often can't get there as fast as we need them to. If you look at the little table at the bottom there, you look at the breakdown, we are rapidly becoming a charity that is very specialist and very focused on the provision of an exceptionally healthy diet with a focus on fresh produce. 41% in the last quarter of the food that we shared is fresh produce, and that requires us to have a very responsive network to move logistics. Now, not wanting to steal anybody's thunder, because Denise is going to give me a look. Denise comes next.
Thank you, Sarah. So Sarah's explained the challenges. Food poverty is on the increase. The challenge of finding food is on the increase too. And those of us from the Livery Movement on the Livery Food Initiative Task Group have just been incredibly impressed by the creativity and the passion which City Harvest are investing into providing as great as an impact as possible. I mean, in our meetings, sometimes it's really horrifying when Sarah and her team are talking through these statistics. But it's been really awe-inspiring, Sarah, to be working with you and your team. We've visited your depot in Acton. We've been out on the vans. We've witnessed the first hand the work that you are doing. And it's enabled us, I hope, to build up a partnership with you, with City Harvest, so that we can not only raise funds to meet your most urgent needs, but we can provide support in ways which may not be immediately obvious. So a very key one point would be where somebody said, oh, does anybody know the Dean of St. Paul's? And as a result of that, that turned into the just fantastic City Harvest Festival at St. Paul's in October. So in year 2 of the project, we're focusing on 3 asks. The first is to fund a truck, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then the second is to increase the sources through the Farm Gate initiative, and Richard is going to be speaking about that. And then the third is a little broader, and that's to understand the impacts that the livery movement as a whole is making to reduce food poverty, because we want to be able to celebrate all of the work that's being undertaken in this area. So the first ask then is for funding the truck. I think Sarah's given you the background at a very high level of the fact why we need a larger vehicle to broaden City Harvest's reach. And when we were at Acton, we were able to see that there was kind of space on the shelves. And that made us ask the question, what can we do to help to fill the shelves to enable you to be able to deliver more food out to the charities who need it? And a 7.5-ton truck can go further afield and it can pick up larger loads. It can be more responsive. It is a bigger ask. We're now asking for the funds to keep the truck on the road for 3 years. It's a bigger ask, but there is a bigger need. So how can we actually do that? We need to raise 270,000 to cover the cost of a truck for 3 years, and that's quite a big increase after raising 190,000 in the first year for the van. But we do feel this should be achievable within the livery movement. And so funding can be direct through to City Harvest using a payment reference from your charitable fund, or there may be numbers of different ways that you can fundraise from individuals. For example, within the management consultants, I've set up a Just Giving page for all our members. And the money that's received from that is going to be matched fund up to £3,000 by our charitable fund. If anybody wants me to set up a Just Giving page, this might be a rash offer, but if anybody wants me to set up a Just Giving page for their charitable fund or their livery company, then I'm very happy to do that for you. And if you want ideas as to how you could fundraise, such as putting a QR code onto menus, for example, which would allow people to link in and donate very quickly, then do please contact Hilary or myself. But another really interesting initiative, I'm going to hand over now to Richard, who's going to be talking about the Farm Gate initiative.
Thank you, Denise. Next slide, please. This really is very simple. You've heard from Sarah, the need is growing, and you've heard reinforced by Denise. This is about trying to improve City Harvest's collection reach, both regionally and nationally. We've heard from Sarah that the greatest opportunity lies within manufacturing, distribution hubs, and primary production. So what we're seeking to do is, with your help, is to find those producers, those suppliers who have the surpluses that we require, but not necessarily the means to get it to us. And we know that City Harvest have the logistic capability, and actually, almost more importantly, in a way, when you look at regionally and nationally, the connection network, to look throughout the country to go and collect something. Next slide, please. So the aim by the end of the month is to send the proposal, the Farm Gate proposal, out to all of you. It gives a bit more detail. It importantly describes how how anybody that can donate can get in touch with the ever-smiling Ben Loeb, who's the City Harvest Food Sourcing Manager, and who is quite superb at answering the right questions, getting to people, finding out how they can pick up supplies, and then getting them to the depot for further distribution. There are 47,000 people in the livery movement, I believe, and we really feel that some of those will have either are in the business of food production or will know people that are. And so the aim of this is simply to provide you the wherewithal to be able to give them the information to contact Ben, or indeed disseminate it further out with a livery to anybody you know, to do that. So, of course, the truck that we've described just now will form part of that fleet to be able to go out and collect such surplus from further afield, either directly or indirectly through contacts. I'll just finish with the next slide, which, picture and words paint 1,000. Here are some testimonials, which I think really prove that it really does work. It's simple, it's easy, it's effective, and it's efficient. Just give you a chance to absorb some of it. So that's it. Farm Gate. Let's find people who've got surplus foods. Let's give City Harvest the wherewithal to go and collect it. Thank you. Hilary, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. So just to share with you the third ask, which we've got. And it was very much recognising that there were 50 companies and guilds who supported the Livery Food Initiative in the first year. But some of you weren't able to support it. And for some of you, it was because the objects of your charity prevented you from actually helping in that way. And a quick plug for the Livery Charity Chairs Group conference on the 11th of June, because one of the topics we're going to look at there is actually around the whole question of reserve funds, or how you can help set up ways of being able to give your money a bit more loosely than you might be able to at the moment. But others of you weren't able to help City Harvest because you were already doing lots of things in this area. You'd got your own ongoing relationships with people that were helping in this way. And we at the task group felt really quite bad that you were doing things, but we weren't able to celebrate what you were doing. So what we're planning to do this year is to go out and ask you all what else you're doing in this space. So we'll be sending around a short online request, just a few questions to each livery company to try and capture how else livery charities have been helping the other similar causes or helping in different ways, so that we can build a more complete picture of what we're doing across the livery in this vital area, because we kept on hearing about other ways that people were helping, and we want to celebrate the bigger picture of what we're doing. So that's very much where we're all up to. It's over to you for questions now. I'll pop these links that we've got here into the chat box anyhow, so you can take them away. But I hope it's given you a feel of what we've achieved in the first year with the Livery Food Initiative. You've heard some more from Sarah about the issues that City Harvest are facing, and indeed that everybody living in London and around London is facing. And then you've heard from Denise, from Richard, and then from me about what we're trying to do about that. So that's the end of the formal presentation. So if I stop the sharing, you've then all got a chance of asking questions. So,
right. So yeah, please put your hands up if you have got a question, and I will see if I can get to you. John, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my head round, and I'm sure you've got better thoughts about this than I have, but, you know, we're the 4th richest country in the world with the highest level of failure in our major cities. What is your, explanation is not quite the word, but what is your sense of that? Why are we in that position?
It's interesting. So our local MP here is Rupa Huck, and she was speaking earlier at the event that's the other side of this wall. Hopefully you can't quite hear it. The music's getting quite loud the other side of the wall. But she was talking about basically there is a societal failure. We have a challenge which started in 2008 with the financial crash, and you had a lot of people who lost savings. They lost a lot of jobs lost then, and there was a big change in the way that we manage society financially at that point. And it showed, and you look at the statistics around those requiring support and homelessness and children requiring free school meals, there's an exponential rise year on year from that point. And obviously, and in the last few years, we've had Brexit, COVID, and the Ukrainian war. And they have further driven up the cost. And I'm trying to get my figures straight. It's 27% increase in the cost of food in the last 2 years, which is the same as 27% increase in the previous 10 years on that. But wages haven't risen at the same rate. Interest rates haven't, savings haven't risen. And so you've got a lot of people who are retired, whose pensions are inadequate. You've got a lot of people, if you're on universal credit, you're 40% short anyway, just on putting food on, turning the lights on, letting and putting food on the table. So you've got a huge gap now between income and the cost of living, the cost of power, and running a household. And that gap gets ever bigger. And because there's been this massive deficit for such a long time, it's having a roll-on effect now into larger and larger numbers.
And presumably other countries have dealt with that somewhat better than we have, I presume, from what you're saying.
Other countries have had a financial crash at a different point to us. They've had austerity measures for a longer or shorter length of time. I mean, so there is a City Harvest New York, which is 40 years old. But the state of the issue in density per capita in the US is catching up with us rapidly. But City Harvest was started 40 years ago because their big crash in the 1960s precipitated their need for more support. So their model is more sophisticated, and a greater proportion of their food is actually recycled and rescued. And this is the big challenge in the UK. We've had this just-in-time retail model. We've come away from, nobody unravels a jumper and reknits the wool anymore. Every retailer, you used to go to the bakers, and if you hadn't bought your bread by 11, well, there wasn't any bread. Well, now there's bread on the shelves until the moment they close for the day. And so there's wastage built into our system, because if that shop doesn't have bread on the shelf, they've got a lot of choice. They'll go next door and buy a loaf of bread there. So we have waste built into our retail system. We have waste built into our manufacturing systems, just in case, because you can't let your retailer partner down, because they'll go to somebody else.
Yes.
And so there's a huge reset needed in the way that we're looking after food and people.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We've got a question from Oliver, who's shown up as iPhone 2 on my screen. Oliver, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I'm down as iPhone 2. I couldn't work out how to change my
Don't worry.
So Oliver Goodinch, I'm chair of the Cook's Charity, trustees of the Cook's Charity. I really got a question for both, well, for all the panel, but particularly Sarah. I haven't heard mention today of the King's Coronation Project, and I just wondered how City Harvest and the other initiatives that were mentioned today are fitting in with what the King launched on November the 14th, and I just last year. So I just wondered if the panel could just mention that.
Yeah, no problem. So the Coronation Food Project has come out of the head of a lovely lady called Charlotte Hill. Charlotte is the chief exec of Felix, who are Fair Share London. Charlotte used to work for the Royal Household. And the Coronation Food Project is an initiative that's going to have 4 stages. So stage 1 is 4 food hubs, which will be based around the nations in Great Britain. So there are 2 that are already in existence. So the hub in England actually is Felix Project, and so that will be their hub in Poplar. The one for Wales is actually going to be just over the border in just into England, but is going to service North Wales, and there'll be one in Scotland, probably around Glasgow, and there'll be one in Northern Ireland. And so that's phase 1. The phase 2 is the initiative that is being fronted currently by Fair Share and George Wright, which is engaging with a wide range of food partners, the major retailers, and that's how it has been launched, because it is at its inception, it is a Fair Share initiative. Stage 3 is an open pot of money, and organisations like City Harvest and our community partners will be able to be bidding into that to head up big community projects. My aspiration for City Harvest direct involvement in that is actually to look at the community food model. So increasingly the demand is for those, as I spoke earlier about the warm space. And so we're looking to the project, and we've had some very positive comments around our opportunity to create a warm space with education and food and warm food and help and guidance. I've had 4 meetings now with Fair Share and George Wright. We work very closely with Felix. We also look after a big network called the Access Network, and so some Fair Share partners are in there in the north of England, as well as a load of other organisations. And so it is helping bring the sector together. One of the challenges in food distribution is we've got a lot of different models. You've got a lot of people who are having impact in different ways within their communities. And one of the aspirations of Coronation Food Project is that we have more cohesion in the sector, and also start creating some more, some synergies and formalising some of the synergies we have now. So, for instance, today we had a very substantial donation come in on an offer. We have very short dated bread. It's more than we can cope with. So we put it out to the Access Network. So some of it's going to Fair Share, some of it's going to Felix, some of it's going to go to Lancaster, some of it's going to Birmingham, some of it's going to Manchester. And that essentially is what the Coronation Food Project is about. That we shouldn't source food. We should, that we then can't share, so we've got to make it equitable. And it's just one of those, it's become a very big thing, but actually what it's going to do is make best practice the norm.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I've got 2 other members that would like to ask a question. I'll go to Martin Big first, and then Angela Freeman. Over to you, Martin.
Thanks very much. And dare I say, I'm incredibly impressed. I knew a little. I now know a lot more. I wish I knew even more. So thank you very much for your help. Can I just ask a couple of questions, because this sort of comes out from home company members, the very practical side. One, your locations, interesting, the distribution of your distribution points. How do you avoid, dare I say it, responding to those who shout loudest, the most articulate, rather than the most need? And my second question is transport. It's very impressive what you're doing in terms of the vehicles. I just wondered whether, sorry, I don't want to sound too negative, but just challenging, whether using alternative vehicles or existing infrastructure may be more cost effective, albeit not necessarily consistent with the message you try to give. And my third question is, yeah, how can we get some more publicity here? And my immediate reaction is to download all your things on my blog and on the website. How can we get more traction across the livery? So sorry, 3 questions in one go.
No problem, no problem. One, responding to need. Well, we have an outstandingly amazing team who look at community impact. Thanks to well, the wonderful people who are involved in the Livery Kitchen initiative during lockdown. We have an amazing guy called Marco Torcati. Marco has spent his entire life in community interest and community impact projects. And Marco, frankly, is the best of us in this organisation. He and his team are responsible for visiting those that inquire about food. So they'll go and see them, they'll make sure that they're in a secure premises because we can't kind of follow them as they migrate around temporary halls or whatever, that they're licensed to handle food, that they have an additional wraparound element to what they're doing. So the provision of food and care is key, but the free food we give them must be facilitating change. We can't be creating dependency on food. What we want to be seeing is people enabled to progress, to help get out of the situation. So training for work, access for technology, childcare, legal advice, you know, all those things that will hopefully help them and enable them to lift themselves out of their situation in time. And we regularly visit them because once they're approved and we're donating and we're delivering food to them, and we audit them regularly, so we know exactly who they're looking after. So if they need halal, they need gluten-free, or they've got lots of mothers and babies, we can tailor the offer so we're not pushing waste downhill towards them. We're delivering as much as we're possible, you know, delivering what they need. And we visit them regularly. So sometimes we'll come and announce just to make sure, you know, they're not selling a leg of lamb out the back door, but also ensuring that they are doing what they say they're doing and looking after the food properly, so the food is remaining safe and you know, healthy. And
Sarah, can I just come in there? Because when we were first getting this idea going, Denise and I had sort of discovered we wanted to do something about food poverty, and we thought, what do we do? And we thought, do we need to find a food bank? How do we choose what to do? And then we just remembered that the Livery Kitchen initiative that Richard had been involved in running had, at the end of their work, they'd actually commissioned Marco to do some work for City Harvest to work out where the need was.
Yeah.
So your whole point, Martin, about how do you make sure it's going where it most needs? This was our biggest concern at the beginning. We were thinking, how do we decide that? And then we discovered there's this fantastic process, if you like, that City Harvest have that is, I mean, you go in their vans and you see all the metrics that they're putting in all the time when they're delivering food and really assessing what difference it makes. Anyway, back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Hilary. The second one around logistics. So last year was jokingly called We're Going to Get It Right. So we did an enormous piece of work around routing and scheduling, because we discovered we had one driver who did 48 postcodes in a week. So of course spent an enormous amount of time watching other people stationary in traffic. So we've reorganized all our routes. We've created some hub and spoke models within the community. So if you've got a street that's, you know, or an estate that's got 5 organizations, we've managed to persuade them to move their model so they all receive a delivery to one point on one day a week, which saves us going to 5 different locations, perhaps split across days. So greater efficiency. It means that we actually have fewer vans on the road in any given day, and we have fewer routes, but they run really efficiently, which means we've reduced our mileage, reduced our carbon footprint. We've improved our service levels, so we're now delivering food at the times which suit the beneficiaries. Because if you're hungry, you're angry and anxious, and it's a massive problem. So we must guarantee that we will deliver the food at the time of day so they can open the doors on time and give people the food they need. So we've been able to improve our service levels to the groups that we support. I absolutely hear what you're saying about alternative modes of transport. One of our big challenges is the volume that we're carrying. To give efficiency, we need to be carrying volume. We need to be able to move quickly through the capital. We do still run a diesel fleet. We've not moved to electric vehicles. One of our big challenges is battery life and payload. We have done so much work into this, looking at how much can be carried and the distance required and the time on the road needed, and we just cannot marry it up because we'd need 3 more vans, so we'd have 3 more drivers, the expense of 3 more vans, and more time on the road. It at the moment doesn't quite work. We have got retrofitted solar panels to all of our vans so that the draw of the power to keep the temperature in the back is is supplemented by solar. And we've been looking at all sorts of bits of kit in partnership with the Amazon fleet. So we've been evaluating all sorts of bits and pieces for them as well. So we've been doing quite a lot. And every 6 months it's part of the normal operations downstairs. They're going to evaluate electric, see if something new has come along. So it will change. It absolutely will change over time. But right now we can't reconcile that one. And more publicity, goodness me, yes. If anybody wants videos, materials, photographs, case studies, you name it, we've got it. Please shout. If you know anybody that commissions documentaries, I would dearly love to have the day in the life of City Harvest driver. If anybody would like to come and have a day in the life of the City Harvest driver, please let us know, because it is the most extraordinary insight, actually, what's going on. I volunteered for City Harvest for 18 months on our food council. So I helped improve the volume of produce and, jumped up and down and shouted in my old life. But what I hadn't really appreciated was exactly what life is like if you're accessing services that are supported by us. On my first day, we didn't tell everybody that I'd been appointed. So I went out on the road with Crazy Jose, who's a great fan of Hillary and Denise's. And he serenades you when you go around. It's a great experience for those that've been out with him. He is an ex-Ricky Martin backing singer. And you're singing by Aileen Broadway. But he is a very strong character who was very, very motivated by what we do and doing the right thing. And on that first day, I visited 6 groups that we support. I saw, things like St. Luke's. St. Luke's is extraordinary. And in Islington, you had 2 queues, one with the homeless who were queuing, waiting for a hot lunch, the chiropodist, the dentist, and somebody who's going to give them a haircut, and a lovely lady who was standing there with 100 pairs of socks and lots and lots of pairs of shoes and boots. And that was really heartbreaking. And the other side of the building are the people who are queuing up, waiting for the food bank to open. And because of the massive shift in economics in the city, they're people that look like you and I. They're people who are educated, who have had great jobs. Some of them look quite smart, but they all look very broken. And it was a real eye-opener, because they're standing there, they've got so little money in their house, they need to come, and frankly, it feels like begging. It's not dignified. And that was if I'd ever had any doubt about whether I'd sort of made the right decision to have a shift, that day really, really cemented it. But to be able to talk about that and the reality of the people, because this is not about laziness. This is not about not having the right attitude to your money. This is about awful situation, which for a lot of people is unavoidable. And it's going to take a lot to lift them out of it. So yeah, please share. Please help us tell the story. And if you know anybody that would really like to do a deep dive into this, because it's a phenomenal sector with some extraordinary people doing amazing things.
Gosh, thank you so much, Sarah. And there is so much more we can do to publicise it. We can all pass on the message. Angela, over to you.
Yes, my question is really sort of building on what you've just been saying about distribution and asking specifically about the farm gate side of it. You were saying that a number of our members might well know people who could provide food. How far away from London will you go to collect surplus food?
Langmeads are in Grimsby tomorrow collecting fish.
Right.
Honestly,
Wow.
it's really fine. We have 11, sorry, Richard, I probably should let Richard do that one, but we have 11 national logistics partners currently. And they offer us the most wonderful, advantageous charity rate. They are really helping us massively. A couple of them also go, you need to ring so and so, there's this sitting in his warehouse, I don't think it's going anywhere. But they will go anywhere in the UK. They treat us like a commercial client, and so they will pick up as long as it's a pallet's worth. Great. One of the big drivers for us to take more control over our logistics fleet is the ongoing costs. We're spending, well, the budget this year is heading close towards 400,000 spent on third-party logistics. It's making a difference because we're bringing an ever-increasing better diet down here. But that's an awful lot of money that could be spent on building a team to do more, to bring more food in. It's that. So the drive to try and have more control over our logistics is one about bringing in, sourcing more food, but having more control over our destiny from a cost perspective.
Thank you.
But
Thank
yeah.
you. Can I ask you a question, Sarah? I heard on the news today that Tesco's and Marks and Spencer's had absolutely brilliant Christmases and made fantastic profits. Have you tried to link up with any supermarkets to see if they can do anything to help? Because frankly, their profits are scandalous, I think, when they're making money off the misery of others, and I don't agree with that. They should be given more back into society, from my view.
I have to be really careful in this job to probably not say what I really think, Bev.
Okay, tell me later. Be subtle.
It's really difficult. Well, I come from a farming background, and I am not a farmer because we couldn't make it work from an economic perspective. There is a huge challenge with that. But in return for that, there are great initiatives that are coming out of the retailers. Yes, we do work with a number of major retailers, but we do tend to work with their supply chain members as well. One of the challenges with a retailer is branding and preservation of own brand. And it's something that is in our future. I am actually speaking with 2 major national retailers at the moment to look at surplus out of their supply chains. But also we have partnership with the National Farmers Union and with the Country Land and Business Association, and a lot of their members are supplying the retailers. So if they get a rejection, we get those pallets in here, we remove all evidence of which retailer it came from, because also in produce it's not helpful having packaging, because you should look at it, squeeze it, sniff it, and make up your mind if you're going to eat it. We help people that way. The retailers, Sainsbury's get massive brownie points around here. There's an amazing Sainsbury's community initiative. We had a grant of £50,000 from the Sainsbury's community initiative last year, which is really about the development of grassroots intervention. We're having a bigger conversation with them this year as well. So there are lots of really, really good things going on, and it has to be said, from an opening up their supply chain perspective, the Coronation Food Project is really helping with that one. The announcement about mandatory reporting of waste is also going to help hugely. As long as it's not made a punitive measure when people go for negotiation for their retail programs, it will be brilliant. It will be absolutely brilliant, because for organisations like ourselves, we'll be able to access some transparency about where the edible waste is sitting. Because at the moment we see that global figure, a third of all food in the world goes to waste. But actually trying to discern what and where is edible and recoverable is still a bit of a dark art at the moment.
Yes, no, thank you very much. That's yes, and I mean it's helping the planet as well, because we've got all this problem with methane gas if we don't eat the food, and that it's a win-win all round. Anyway.
I mean, when we were founded 10 years ago by the Winninghams, the massive driver on this was stopping good food going to landfill because of the greenhouse gas emissions. Almost you could look at us as being an environmental charity that has a social benefit.
Absolutely, yes. Right, any more questions from anyone? Come on, I'm sure you've got thousands of questions that you're just dying to ask. No, I can't see.
Can I just add, Bev, onto that point that Sarah was making about the good food going to waste? I think the thing that City Harvest has, I think more than any of the other organisations in this space, is the emphasis on healthy food. So when we say good food, it's good, nutritious food. And so it means that people that get the food, I mean, you were talking about it being a win-win. I mean, it's a win-win for the climate and for the people that need the food, but it's also the win-win for people. If they're better fed, they can then better take advantage of opportunities, particularly children with education. So we come back to a conversation we had just before the call started around rickets in children. And City Harvest are really, really focusing on good quality food. And that's one of the things that's just, if you go around the depot and look at the quality of the food that's going out there, it's absolutely the right things that anybody ought to be having on their meal plate.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's really the Eat Well plate. I know, because I'm fairly cynical, but we won't ever be able to deliver the Eat Well plate. But that is the aspiration of the team, that we facilitate availability, at least a decent proportion of the Eat Well plate. So you are having protein and carbs, and because we all know how well we feel when we eat properly, and we all know how wretched we feel when we're hungry. And if you look at that as an ongoing issue, and as a parent, you're watching your children fail because you can't feed them well, or as a mother, you can't eat a proper diet when you're carrying your child. it has just the on effects are just devastating.
Yes, true.
And Sarah, did you want to say anything about the impact reports that you issue?
Yes, one of the things you said when we're talking about engaging with businesses, so you'll have seen through your wonderful reporting from Hilary and the LFI team that we produce impact reports. So every time we have a donation, so for the van, for instance, we will talk about the amount of food it's transported, the meals that it has facilitated, the number of people we've helped. If you are a food donor, we will talk about in terms of the meals produced, the volume of food that you've helped, that you've donated, but also we will do a greenhouse gas offset statement for you. So we work with Food Matters, we work with WRAP, and so we're producing a really detailed impact report because we can't remunerate you for the food that you donate to us because we don't charge for food. We very fundamentally believe that the free food facilitates everything that we want to see change. But what we can do is give you evidence and good data for net zero and Cat3 emission reporting, ESG reporting for board level reports. If somebody is we're talking about farming, if they are a LEAF member, our report and our data contributes to your evidence around reduction and waste and greenhouse gas aversion in your LEAF audit, which will then tie in with your major retailer audit as well. So we try as much as possible to reward our supporters in the best way we can, and we're a very data-led organisation.
One final question. In your view, could the government be doing anything more to help you with all of this?
Yes.
It's a very leading question, I know, and I don't want to get political, but could they do anything?
Yeah.
Could they introduce grants or schemes or incentives or anything like that?
Gosh, Bev, yes. What I really want to see is a cross-government department working party, because at the moment it sits with DEFRA to look after waste reporting. It looks at health and social care to look at maternal health and the effects of malnutrition. What you need to do is get everybody around the table. Overseas trade, you need justice, you need education, you need health, you need all the departments sitting around the table, because the effects of hunger on society is manifold. There's an economic one, there's a health one, there's an education one, there's a social justice. It's manifold. So one, get all the departments looking at this and thinking about it, as opposed to one department not speaking to another, because there's a huge disconnect within the civil service at the moment. And as we've seen recently, a rapid turnover of secretaries of state, so no consistency in approach either. The second one is the looking after what's happening with borough and regional district councils. So obviously you've got a massive example in Birmingham where they have gone bankrupt now. They've had so much money taken out of their budget, they've removed a lot of their social care provision. So you don't have sure start centres, children's centres, refugee drop-ins, community assistance. And so it's a sector, it's the third sector which is stepping up. And it's the support for those. So we work with a lot of organisations who are working out of condemned buildings. They're getting it for free while they're waiting for it to come down, which is a precarious and awful situation to be in. But they're delivering what would have been delivered by their borough council 20 years ago. And the third one is we need an audit as a sector. We actually need to be able to quantify financially our benefit to society. Because I mean, I can talk about the value of the food that we've shared. Where have we got to? £92 million worth of food shared in 9.5 years. That's £92.5 million invested in London communities. And if you look at the other organisations like ourselves just here, and then magnify that for the nation, the financial input of the third sector and the food redistribution sector is enormous, and it's replacing a very, very substantial government bill, or offsetting a government bill. And I think we need to quantify the social benefit and the financial benefit, because actually that's how we're going to affect change, because it's actually looking at the value of what we're doing. And what would happen if we stop, because we are so reliant on amazing people like yourselves. We're so reliant on trusts and foundations. City Harvest doesn't get any government grants. We have no public sector funding whatsoever, and we don't have access to it either. And majority of the organisations we work with don't either. So we are reliant on golden-hearted altruistic individuals who recognise the issue and are willing to put some money in to help us deliver change. And that should change.
And Sarah, it's really interesting that this call is hosted by the Chartered Accountants, because one of the most impressive things about City Harvest, when I first looked through your accounts and we were thinking about working with you, is that the social return on investment is £12 for
It's
every pound
incredible.
anybody gives City Harvest. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal, the difference it can make.
Yeah.
And while I've just got the microphone, Bev, can I just mention, I've popped 3 links up in the chat if anybody wants to have them. There's a link there, they're all together, a link to the latest Ask and Impact reports that you can find. There's a link to our piece on the City Harvest website, where if you scroll down from that, you'll see a picture of Denise and me with Jose in the middle making a heart sign. And if you click on that, you can hear Jose serenading us. Well, we weren't quite there at the time, but you can hear his amazing singing.
How lovely.
And then the bottom area is where if you want to make a personal donation that would go direct to City Harvest through the Livery Food Initiative, there's a link there for that. But I mean, this evening, Bev, it's been fantastic being here and having the opportunity. I mean, you all say you want more publicity. Well, this evening is us finding an opportunity for publicity and sharing it all to you, with you. So please do spread the word so that we can go on making a difference for this amazing organisation.
Thank you. You do know, everyone, that you can save the chat. It comes out as some sort of weird file, but you can save it so that you don't have to jot down all these links. You can actually download it and then look at it at your leisure. We've got a final question from Sue. Sue, you're on mute.
It's not so much as a question as a comment, really. I mean, when I worked in the homelessness sector, there was a cross-party initiative set up to try and tackle homelessness. And it seems to me that this whole issue transcends party politics. And I don't know, I have no idea how you set about doing it. What it needs is a cross-party initiative to tackle the food poverty as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it really does. And it's very disjointed at the moment. I mean, there are some great initiatives. Coronation Food Project is kind of stepping into the gap, if I'm really honest, because it's raising awareness in a very, very sharp way, and is empowering George Wright and the Fair Share team to be able to go out and, you know, go in at C-suite level and really make a difference. I mean, but everybody in our space. I've had a long conversation today with Mark Game, who's the bread and butter thing in Birmingham, in Manchester, who are big partners of ours. And we do a lot of engagement with local authority and with government, because it's so hard to join them up. And hopefully CFP is actually kicking everybody into action to stop acting independently and get on with it. I chair a group in London, which is all the social impact charities. So there's ourselves and Felix and the Magic Breakfasts. Magic Breakfast delivers 75,000 breakfasts into primary schools every day across the UK. Then you've got the Mayor's Fund for London. They deliver a thing called Take and Make on a Friday, which is a bit like Hello Fresh, but it goes home with a teenager under the guise of they're going to learn how to cook. But what they're actually delivering is 2 really balanced meals for their household for the weekend. Also into there goes the Food Foundation, who are collating all the data around percentage of the population who are facing hunger. We also have the Children's Society that join us as well. And that group, that's the catalyst. Oh, sorry, and Felix as well. I mustn't forget Felix, who are Fair Share London. And we sit around the table together. We have dinner once a quarter. And it's that group that's going to be the catalyst to the government engagement and the cross-party piece. We've got a new APPG around fair pricing in food. And that's the first one, which is going to represent the whole of the supply chain. So that came out of a lockdown project, which was based around the needs of farmers. But actually, well, I'm the vice chair, so I've bullied them. So we're going to now cover everything from farm gate, retail supply, and then also looking at the end of society that can't afford what's going on in retail at the moment. So fair returns to ensure that we've got a sustainable and, you know, safe, secure food system in the UK for homegrown, but then also about how that's going to be facilitated for the whole of society, as opposed to the proportion that can pay a premium price. So that's also going to come into this piece of work as well.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I mean, we've bombarded you with questions, and you must be very hoarse. But
love what I do.
So much information. I know there's so much. I can see it just bubbling. There's so much more you could tell us about all the initiatives. Does anyone have any final questions? Otherwise, I will hand back to Hilary just for a final few words on our evening.
I think maybe Oliver's waving.
Oh, Oliver?
He could be being friendly, but
No, I hope I was being friendly as well. Actually, I have got a final question for Hilary. You mentioned that there'll be a note going out to livery chairs and presumably clerks of livery companies as well about the information that you were looking to collate. When are we likely to see that?
We're hoping to do it probably during February, so fairly soon.
Okay,
So
I just want to look out for it and make sure my clerk.
Yeah, we'll make sure it and I'm sure it'll come out several times, encouraging people to join in. But there are 2 other people on the call, and I are meeting at 9 o'clock on Monday morning to if you see anybody smiling, you know they're involved with this, to think about what questions we might ask, so we can get the most possible information, taking the least amount of your time, but then getting the most impact from it. So that's the aim.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, can I say a huge thank you to our 4 speakers, and in particular to Sarah, who's just given us so much information. As I say, the slides will be available, and as will be the recording as well. So can we please thank our speakers in our usual fashion? Thank you. That's brilliant. And I think we need to make this an annual event now to get another update from Sarah. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.